So what you saw then was this committee was formed, the superintendent was supporting it, pushing it, and to be clear, I'm sure that a lot of that was coming from federal mandates and other
Yes,
things. And so, he would say, look, I'm just trying to do my job. Uh, Arguably, yes, arguably, no, because, at the end of the day, it's the kids that matter, not the
hmm,
bureaucrats
that's right.
somewhere that's telling us the way they want us to operate things. And so let me ask this question. In Pennsylvania, every state's different. So in Pennsylvania, so there's a state school board and then there are local school boards. We have this on our website under the resource Know Your Schools. But in Pennsylvania, do the local school board members have quite a lot of ability to implement things like policy? I mean, obviously they do the hiring, firing, and so forth, but do they just purely kind of make sure that what the state school board says happens gets done to the T? Or is it that does the state board kind of set minimum policy and minimum guidelines, and the local school boards then actually govern and actually administrate, in the sense, the local school systems?
Well, something else I learned and I talk about a lot now with candidates is that the school board members need to realize their power because every school district school board is their own governing body. Okay.
Okay.
They set their own policy for their district.
Okay.
The, the PDE, the Pennsylvania Department of Education, they put out benchmarks for,
Yeah.
academics per grade level. And the school district can use whatever materials or curriculum they choose to reach those benchmarks.
It's interesting. Actually, there's a majority of our states that operate that way. I believe that's the best way. That's the way it ought to be. And it's important for people to understand that in most cases, when I'm talking now to our audience and to citizens out there, in most cases, the local school boards have significant authority to give leadership and guidance to critical areas that go on in their school systems. I mean, including the type of curriculum that's going to be followed, many of the policies that are implemented, carried out, processes, all of those things. Local school boards have quite a lot of authority and ability there. So that's why we believe that local school boards are so important, and why having good leaders there is so important. So, all right, so you had this committee doing their thing, and they started to then implement this into the classrooms, into the text. Were the books and stuff that were being used, were they being used as curriculum content, or were these, I shouldn't say just, were these issues that related primarily to holdings in the library? And so we've talked a little bit about racial issues, but I'm confident there were also gender and sex related issues as well.
Absolutely. They were tackling it all. Um, I caught it before it was approved. After I was in the committee meetings and I wasn't getting anywhere with the superintendent or the assistant superintendent about my questions and concerns, I then thought, okay, well, they had their chance. I'm going to bring this to a public meeting and I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
asking questions. Now, I didn't, go out and start attacking. I just started asking the hard questions to bring this to the public so they could
Mm-hmm.
hear my concerns and what was going on and what the plans were.
Mm-hmm.
So it was time to approve the PDE's benchmarks, which the districts call curriculum. I disagree with that term for benchmarks. Curriculum is the whole package
Right.
of, you have your benchmarks, you have your assessments, you have the programs in which you use to teach,
Mm-hmm.
is the curriculum. So I asked questions, right in the height of defund the police. being pushed. One of the benchmarks was teaching the value of police. And so I saw these books that were very anti-police. So my question was, what are the instructional materials that you're using to teach this benchmark, the value of police? They could not answer. I disagree with the public school teaching the value of parents or the role of a parent. So that was another question. There was a benchmark that actually almost looked like it was the word verse. The teacher authority versus the parent authority once the student is in school. Like, why is that even a benchmark? So I brought that up and I asked, what does that mean? And what instructional materials are you using to teach this? I cannot approve this not knowing what you're using. And in my opinion, it's not the government school to teach the authority, the value of a parent versus a value of the teacher. Two different things. And they could not answer my questions. It did start a conversation amongst the board. I shared that I was concerned with some of the things I heard being discussed in the diversity committee meetings, and it needs to be addressed before we approve these so-called benchmarks / curriculum, whatever you want to refer to it as. And then the next day I was in the newspaper. Never expected any of this, by the way. I just was asking innocent questions. I had no idea that I made sure I did not use the trendy terms such as white privilege in my questions, such as the white saviorism in my questions. I made sure that I didn't even go there. And the next day I was in the newspaper as a racist.
Interesting.
Yes.
So was that, we don't need to go into that. That can go a lot of different directions. But so, yes, so that kind of stuff unfortunately does happen in communities. And so let's kind of hone down. So at the end of the day, you became a target.
Yes.
And so did you find other conservatives on the board decided to stand with you, or did they not because of what they saw was happening to you? And at the end of the day, kind of tell us now kind of what happened. Give us your story there in just a couple minutes, if you would.
So it was myself and one other fellow board member. Her name was Vicky, and she also added to the conversation at that board meeting. And now let me just say, parents were engaged because they didn't want masks. Parents were engaged because they wanted their kids back in school playing sports, and then they go away. Then when we were still remote meeting, so we didn't have an audience in the room, the night, that was August 10th, I think, 2020, that night when I started asking questions, started it. There were maybe 50 people on the live stream. The next week, August 17th, it went up to 952. People were starting to listen and get engaged. They wanted to know what was going on in their kids' classrooms.
Now these are parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Letters started rolling in favor of my questions, in favor of transparency in what is being taught in the classrooms, against anything related to anti-racism or critical race theory, oppressed versus oppressor concepts. Letter after letter after letter. And it is the law that the public is to be heard. So they had to read every letter out loud in the board meetings. It was considered citizen comment.
Right.
So every letter was read, and for every 25 letters, there was one that might have been, this agreeing with the CRT, right? So you did have a little bit of both. People seeing what was happening to me and trying to stand back because they didn't want that kind of attention. They were afraid for their jobs. It was the height of cancel culture. And I just kind of fell into it. And I figured I need to keep fighting because I'm not going to back down now. I need to finish what I started. Plus, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
We need to fight for our next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened, we have a local grassroots group called Free PA here in York County that was started during the shutdown. And the leaders of that asked me to come speak to tell the community what was going on. Now, I went there and I prefaced my speech with, I'm not there representing the school board. I'm there as a parent informing the community. And I didn't release anything that was not public already. I just said, this is what's going on. This is what I saw in these public committee meetings. People need to be aware. Because if we don't tackle this now, it's going to be our children, the next generation, burning down our cities in 10 years. And it was quite concerning, and people started waking up in our community about it. So when the book list came out, it was 2 months of debate in school board meetings, but then that was August. So then finally by November, we tabled the book list because I proposed a curriculum committee to be developed so we could vet the books. Every piece of instructional material needs to be content and age appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the goal was. But the superintendent and then the rest of the school board that wasn't willing to step out allowed it to get kicked down the road. And it never came to fruition. I got in contact with another superintendent from a local district in another county who mentored me through this a little bit. And he explained how a board should be structured, and which our board was not structured this way. And every board should be structured as a committee structured board.
Right.
You have a committee for all of the major areas of the district, curriculum, sports, extracurricular, obviously budget and finance, policy. We had a policy committee they say that was by law, but I think they all should be, because there needs to be oversight in all of it. Even groundskeeping, there needs to be committees to have oversight and accountability into where the money's going and what the kids are being taught.
So what happened then was, because of your pushback, it appears that there started to be some organization, some resistance, whether it was teachers, unions, or community people. I don't know. Maybe you want to tell us some of those things. And basically there became a big push and a lot of money invested to get you off of the board. Talk to us quickly about that.
Sure. So the curriculum committee never happened. And that's because of the resistance from most board members and the board president, which to this day, if that happened, we would not be in this position. So my term was coming up, and I decided I wanted to run again. And during that time, so campaigns start around March of the previous general election. So the superintendent, we pushed back on him on a lot of issues, many issues. Mm-hmm. So he's so used to controlling everything. We basically pushed him out, and he retired early. But he didn't go out without a bang. What he did was he took that Google file, which was the book list was on a shared doc that I was, a lot of us were looking at and seeing what was the book list, how it was growing, or what was, and some of the teachers that were involved in the diversity committee actually edited that book list even after it was tabled. It should never have been touched. So they started removing some of the books I was questioning. So the superintendent, on his way out in September 2021, he grabbed that list. He changed the name to Diversity Committee Book List to Banned Book List. And he leaked it to the press. And that was in the heart of our campaign. So it just blew up. And there's activist teachers at the high school that were grabbing the students to be their mouthpieces, and they were protesting in front of our building every morning. And a lot of these activist teachers run a club called the Beautiful People Club, and they target ninth grade kids that come in. They target special needs, autistic children to join their Beautiful People Club, and it's all about LGBTQ and transgender. And this is going on under the noses of this administration and the school board. Um, so while they were protesting, the newspapers were going crazy. My opponents raised $75,000 and were sending mailers just attacking me, saying I'm messing up children's minds. But they were sending them to Republicans. They were sending them to my voters. And it worked. I mean, we only had 25,000. They had 75,000 to work with, and their money came in from all over the country. Some of the most liberal states in the country, Seattle. Money came in from Portland, Oregon. Money came in from the Virgin Islands. Act Blue, and we all know what Act Blue is. The Democratic Party of Pennsylvania, the teachers' unions. Never has there ever been that much money raised for school board. My first race, we spent maybe 7,000 between primary and general.
Yeah.
This time we did spend 25,000 because we had more donations, right? Because of what the opposition was doing.
Right.
So yeah, I was labeled the book banner.
You were defeated. Is that correct?
I was defeated.
I think there are a couple takeaways that all of us listening need to get from this. First of all, it takes a lot of courage to really lead and to be bold on issues that are important and for the good and the health of our communities, and especially for our children.
Yes.
And so, first of all, I want to thank you for the stand that you took. No question about it. We believe that you are on the right side of those issues. And it's not about book banning.
No.
It's about ultimately what is the purpose of the school, and does that content actually help fulfill the mission of the school? And so typically, schools are there to train people in the academics and in the rigor and prepare kids for life. It's really the parents and other, faith-based groups and other community groups that the parents choose to associate with in the community. It's really up to them to take care of these other issues on belief systems and their political and social issues. We need to get all of that stuff out of our schools. And really focus on making sure that our kids are protected and that they are equipped so that they can become great citizens. And just pitting kids against each other is unhealthy by any standard. And so, do we care about individuals with, gender confusion and so forth? Absolutely. And those individuals need to be cared about. But it's really not the school's issue. That needs to be taken other places in the community, and it needs to be directed and guided by the parents. And so, first of all, I just want to make that really clear that I stand with you there. And I think most parents across this country would stand with us there. And what's important now for parents to understand is that in these issues, it's critical that parents get engaged, because a lot of people think, look, these things only happen in, distant places, or they only happen in urban centers and so forth. No. York County is pretty conservative and it's fairly rural. And we see that all across the country. These issues are not just going into certain areas. It's universally saturating into the school systems. It's being driven from top down and so forth. So parents, you need to get involved. You've got to
Yes.
know what is going on in your schools. You've got to hold school board members accountable for what's going on in the schools. And if school board members are not fighting for your kids and your rights as parents, you need to replace them.
Yes.
And let's go a step farther even than that. As parents, you get bombarded by campaigns, especially, and the question always is, you know, how do I know who's the best person, the right person? Let me just say, don't believe everything you see. Don't believe everything you hear. You need to engage with the candidates themselves and find out from their own mouths what's really going on. And you can do that. It's not that difficult. You just got to reach out. Their candidate information is always available, and you just need to reach out and find out, ask your questions, and get answers for you so that you are well prepared and well equipped, and you are not just picking up campaign rhetoric that often is aggressive and attacking and often very misleading. Unfortunately, politics has come to that in many, many cases. And so let's talk now, Veronica. What are you doing now in your community to try to just stay engaged, stay involved, work with community leaders and parents, and continue what you believe to be the right thing? What are you doing right now?
Well, I joined a local grassroots PAC called PA Economic Growth PAC that was started here in your county by some really great business owners and a few representatives, state representatives for support and guidance. And it was basically started to keep businesses open during the mandate, but then it moved into supporting some grassroots candidates to primary other candidates and get good people up in Harrisburg, when they've been very successful in that. So they asked me to join them as their education director for their education piece of the PAC. And so, the tasks change depending upon the season or the time of year. And right now, for the past several months, I've been recruiting school board candidates. Because what you say, if the school board directors are not doing what you want, parents, run for school board, get involved, get engaged. You will be astounded by what you learn, and your eyes will be opened, and it is quite rewarding to be able to be in a position to be something bigger than yourself and have impact, especially when it is concerning our children, our next generation, and eventually our communities in our state and our country. Mm-hmm. So it is difficult because people are skeptical about going through what I might have gone through. I went through, but I come alongside these candidates and I help them through on the process of getting on the ballot and some campaign strategy. And we have a team of people through the PAC that is willing to help and train as well. Like when I ran for school board, there was nobody, but now we're assisting and supporting, endorsing, helping financially in some districts, depending upon the type of campaign might be running there. Once these candidates are elected and they get in those seats, we then offer a training about, okay, now I'm elected, what do I do now, kind of thing. So because they do have to get the state board training, but we want to go beyond that. And we want to teach them what they really need to know and how to work with the system and how to make the system work for them and the students, putting the students and the taxpayers first.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. If people want to reach out to you or contact you, how can they do that?
Well, they can email me. They can find me on Facebook. They can contact the PA Economic Growth PAC Facebook page.
Do you have a website?
Yes, it's the PA Economic Growth PAC.com. And again, they're on Facebook. They can contact me through there. And my email is VEG EMMA, the number 5, at gmail.com. They can email me anytime and ask questions. I'm always willing and open to help and assist.
Well, Veronica, thank you for your time as you've shared some of the things, even the things you're working on going forward. I think that's a great idea. We do some of those very same things here at Noah Webster Educational Foundation, and people can learn all about not only the candidate training that we provide online, but also the continuing education we do for school board members, summits, and so forth. And all of that can be found on our website at NWEF.org. Thank you, Veronica, for what you guys are doing. And together we're all working for the benefit of our children, our families, our schools, and our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melvin.